A team of archaeologists and computer scientists have created an AI program that can translate ancient cuneiform tablets instantly using neural machine learning translations.
Hey everybody, welcome to Studio 64. My name's David. I've been searching the interzones for more science, space and tech news to share with you. Came across this at Ancient Origins. This should be very interesting indeed. Now this is Linear A in the Machine, a brute force attack to decrypt the Minoan code. Yes, ancient texts and using AI. This is very interesting. This is an article by a gentleman by the name of Dr. Francesco. There he is, Dr. Francesco Parono Cacciafocio. Magnificent name there, by the way, Dr. Francesco. That's amazing. Let's see what Dr. Francesco has to say for himself. This is fascinating. A combination, as I say, I love all science. I'm not a scientist myself. But one of my favorite things about science is bringing in different disciplines. You know, like aerospace and astronomy. You know? Like building the spaceships so the astronomers and, could, jump on a spacecraft and go and visit a celestial, object and observe it. The two of them had to work together to build that. That's just amazing. Same here. You've got archaeology, you've got linguistics, you've got, history combining with artificial intelligence and computing. Putting it all together. It's absolutely incredible. Gotta love it. Right, so this is the story of a quest, a story which stems from a stream of failures and some gleams of perseverance, where countless attempts clash with repeated falls. A story which exists because of people who gave up and other individuals who took the baton and continue the quest. It is a story which in itself dates back to more than 100 years ago, contemplates some exciting moments and bitter disappointments, and falls beneath a landslide of resignation and powerlessness before starting anew again. Now, this is a story of Linear A, not its complete history. There are books and academic papers for that, e.g. Robinson Passam, Parono Cacciafocio, and but the story is It's a story of one of its last ongoing decipherment attempts, born out of the almost absolute certainty of its undecipherability. Therefore, this is the story on Linear A. Yes, very interesting. This fascinates me. So even with science fiction, you've got things like Stargate and translating Egyptian hieroglyphs and stuff like that and turning them into something practical. I know it's a story, but this excites me. Imagine the things we're going to learn. It'll be ordinary everyday stuff, but there'll be a lot of exciting stuff in it too. So I can't wait one day for this to really occur, to really happen. The rediscovery of Linear A. Now, Linear A was rediscovered by Sir Arthur Evans at the beginning of the 20th century, after more than 100 years and many failed decipherments. A considerable number of scholars lost all hope that one day we'll ever be able to interpret its puzzle. Some other individuals still work patiently on it, trying to unravel its tangle. Now, at the level of definition, Linear A is indeed a currently undeciphered writing system from Bronze Age Crete, specifically from the New Palace period in the Aegean Sea. It hides the so-called Minoan language, which at the moment cannot be read. The script was used by the Minoans, possibly a pre-Greek civilization, approximately between 1800 BC and 1450 BC. Now, as usual, I'll leave the link to the main article below the video, so feel free to pop in, check out some of these embedded links, go for a bit of a deeper dive if you want. Makes for a very interesting read, believe me. Nothing like learning. I think it's fascinating, and that's why I do this, to share science, space, and tech news with people, because I'm just a nerd from way back. Now, when Mycenaeans, who were an Indo-European Greek people coming from continental Greece, invaded Crete between the 15th and 14th centuries BC, they used a Linear A as a model for their syllabic writing system. Linear B, which transcribed their Indo-European language, Mycenaean Greek. See, I'm not a scientist, I can't even pronounce it. Apologies there to anybody of Mycenaean heritage. Yes. Brilliant. Arthur Evans, look at this, who was excavating the Minoan palace of Knossos in 1900, unearthed in a relatively short time around 3,000 clay tablets carrying inscribed symbols, i.e. writing, and was the scholar who named the two main scripts found in Crete, besides the so-called Cretan hieroglyphs, Linear A and Linear B, apparently because they are mainly composed of lines and are linearly written. Yes, very, very interesting. These things I was unaware of, and I think it's amazing. Linear A is attested in clay tablets, votive tables, and offering vessels in stone, ceramic fragments, and silver and gold hairpins and roundels. Very interesting. The script is composed of possible syllabic signs, combined characters with ligatures, possible ideograms, and possible numerals and measurement symbols. Wow, look at that. A linear tablet from the Palace of Zakros Archaeological Museum of Scythia. Look at that. Look, now you know where emojis came from. See, there's another tie-in with computing. Guarantee you emojis, based on this sort of stuff, little picture things, so everyone thinks they're new. No. Based on this stuff. Incredible. Now, while Linear B was deciphered by Michael Ventris in 1952, was one of the most exciting discoveries in philology and linguistics of last century, a testament to human ingenuity, Linear A remains undeciphered. All decipherment attempts failed so far, and the hope to read the Minoan language is slowly fading. All right, so what we have to work with. So Dr. Francesco started to work on Linear A long time ago when he was at the University of Pisa in Italy. To learn, he reproduced some of the previous decipherment attempts and also tried to follow some new leads, looking for a possible path, to no avail, unfortunately. Now, it's not an exaggeration to say that Linear A provides its aspiring glyph breakers with unique, possibly unsurmountable challenges. The corpus is not small enough to automatically mean the writing system will never be deciphered. However, it is not big enough to provide consistent data and materials to make anyone optimistic about a possible success in its interpretation. So is that anybody out there who's a linguist could probably fill this in a bit better for me, because I'm just really thinking aloud here while sharing this news story here. So it's kind of like you could eventually match symbols and go, well, when this symbol comes here, you can get the structure of the language. This means this, and this is, what we call a verb or something like that. Again, I'm just thinking aloud. So you could break up the structure of a sentence, and this symbol could mean, sunrise, sunset. This could be, this could mean water, that sort of thing. Interesting. Yes, the fact that many symbols are shared with the deciphered and therefore readable Linear B should be an added value and asset. Yeah, it should be. I mean, if you share certain symbols, you think it would, translate across, so to make it easier to figure out Linear A, because there's similar symbols in Linear B. Unfortunately, the natural operation of reading Linear A through the phonetic values of possibly corresponding syllabograms from Linear B leads nowhere, and is probably one of the reasons of many misunderstandings generated by a number of interpretations from the past. That's understandable. That said, there is not much that can be done to improve approaches and methods. If Linear A transcribes an isolate language, a language for which we cannot find a linguistic family, and or possibly related languages, no matter how we try to read its symbols and the phonetic values that we might ascribe to them, we'll never be able to decipher it. Yeah, so modern languages, I mean, you've got English, which is a language that's obviously built around, many other languages. I mean, you can understand words of French in English, such as, we always use, the words touché and there's so many of them, it's what I mean? There's just lists of the words from different languages, and yet you can look at another language and you can see the structure of words. And I love linguistics too. It's just fascinating to me. You can see the structure of words, even though the spelling's different. You can sort of, or by context, you can tell when a word comes in a particular sentence in a particular language, and you can, deduce by context the actual meaning of that particular word. It's fascinating stuff. As I say, I find it difficult to describe, exactly what's going on in my head sometimes, but I can actually see it. It's absolutely amazing stuff. Yeah. So as I say, look at different sentences and, and you can see between different languages, say between French and English or German and English, Absolutely fascinating. This option, fortunately, is unfortunately quite unlikely. It's very difficult, and probably it would even be methodologically wrong, to think that Minoans had no connections with any other contemporary language spoken in its times in the Aegean and Mediterranean areas and surrounding territories. Languages, indeed, are never isolated in themselves. They become that way because they get more and more unknown and undocumented over centuries and millennia, and due to that, we're not able to historically reconstruct their mutual relationships and their origins anymore. Our ignorance of their kinship, therefore, does not mean that they would not belong to a language family. Yeah, that's interesting. But we also see it with English, how it's progressed over the years, and there are different accents and dialects and all this sort of thing too. Like Middle English, early English is different to modern English, but we can still understand it. And the language has changed even in my lifetime. We use words and phrases we adopt particularly from the Americans' version of English. Sadly. No, I'm only kidding. But seriously, you know what I mean? Like it's you can see language changing over time. And now with the advent of mass communications via the internet, and particularly with social media, our language is changing in real time very, very quickly. It's interesting. What's this here? A Linear A tablet. Chania Archaeological Museum. Wow. That's cool. I wonder if Linear A would be attributable to other languages. That'll be interesting. Other than the Minoan language, I mean. Getting to grips with the script. Yes, some years ago I landed an academic job at Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. Now, at the time, I was still working on Linear A at the documentary level and as part of my teaching, but I was not actively trying to decipher it anymore. Oh, come on, Dr. Francesco, don't give up. However, his story with the interpretation of that ancient script from Crete was not yet completely over. At NTU, he was teaching a course in the history of cryptography, which included a couple of classes on language deciphering. Those classes were often my students' favourites, the ones getting more focused discussions and questions. Through them, the students discovered their passion for classics, at the point of wanting to learn ancient Greek and Latin and how to read Linear B. From there, they started to talk about the decipherment of Linear A. The interest was reignited on the impenetrable writing system. Okay. A research grant on Linear A followed eventually, and 16 research assistants were hired among those students. Now, despite the enthusiasm, we knew that no matter what, we would have had biases which would lead to possibly unsolvable mysteries. We would have thought, like many of the scholars before us, to know or be able to guess the possible language hidden behind Linear A. As a consequence, we would have plausibly tried to linguistically demonstrate unavoidably arbitrary assumptions, and that would have led us very far from our goal. Yeah, so natural assumptions on language. You'd be subconsciously trying to figure out if there was anything understandable in English in there, or if you spoke native French speaker or Spanish or something, I guess. That's very, very interesting, isn't it? Very interesting indeed. Yeah, because it's trying to find, it says here, this picture, Linear A inscription on a clay tablet from Crete, probably 15th century BC, the Archaeological Museum of Heraklion. So it's trying to find if it shares a common root with other known languages at the time. So that's what it's about. Okay. Cool. Fascinating. Can you imagine an astrolinguist, translating, you see these symbols on another planet. Holy crap. Well, similar symbols, you know what I mean? And that'd be just an awesome job. Before even starting, therefore, the team would have had to find a way to remove all kinds of baseless postulations, groundless intuitions, and risky hypotheses in a way to impartially investigate all possible options, no matter how unlikely, independently of their mainstream or niche nature. Wow. Interesting. Let's get on to the brute force and using brute force and cracking with cryptology and AI. This should be interesting. How could brute force crack this? Now, cryptology, which is the association of cryptography, the art of inventing, developing, and implementing codes, ciphers, and crypto systems, with cryptanalysis, the art of deciphering, decrypting, and reverse engineering codes, ciphers, and crypto systems, came to the rescue. Now, by providing us with an idea for the possibly most unbiased procedure that one can apply while trying to crack a crypto system, the so-called brute force attack. In cryptanalysis, a brute force attack basically consists of attributing each digit, which can be a letter, number, or character, a symbol, etc., of a cipher, theoretically all its reasonably possible values, to continue that way until parts of the text, segments, words, clusters, phrases, etc., become apparent and readable. In other words, until those parts make sense, leading the cryptanalysts from an incomprehensible cipher text to a relatively clear and rationally readable plain text. Even if it sort of doesn't solve it for you completely, it might make it a little bit easier for you to crack the code. Yeah. A procedure like that needs enough text to work on to be able to recognize clues and cribs and perform frequency and pattern analysis and possibly some advanced statistical calculations. A considerable amount of time, unwavering patience, strong intellectual skills, and obviously luck. That is necessary to find what I call lucky matches, possible segments of actual text, which allow to crack the whole system, generating a sort of rain effect. Yeah. Interesting. Now, sometimes when the text and the related data are too large, a brute force attack is not convenient or possible because the amount of time and effort required to perform it overcomes the possible benefits of encryption. However, when applicable and well developed, a brute force attack can effectively crack a code when its cipher key is known. That's the whole, literally the key, is to try and find that cipher key, isn't it? That allows you to be able to break a code or understand a language. Interesting. All right, we've got a little bit of a video here that'll give us a little bit more background on linear A and using AI to crack these codes. We'll check it out and carry on the conversation when we come out the other side.
A team of archaeologists and computer scientists have created an AI program that can translate ancient cuneiform tablets instantly using neural machine learning translations. In a paper published in the journal PNAS Nexus from the Oxford University Press, the researchers have applied the AI program to translate Akkadian texts with a high level of accuracy. Akkadian is an ancient East Semitic language, was once spoken in various regions of ancient Mesopotamia, including Akkad, Assyria, Isin, Larsa, Babylonia, and possibly Dilmun. The language is preserved on clay tablets dating back to 2500 BC that was written using cuneiform, a script adopted from the Sumerians using wedge-shaped symbols pressed in wet clay. According to the researchers, hundreds of thousands of clay tablets inscribed in the cuneiform script document the political, social, economic, and scientific history of ancient Mesopotamia. Yet most of these documents remain untranslated and inaccessible due to their sheer number and limited quantity of experts able to read them. The AI program has a high-level accuracy when translating formal Akkadian texts, such as royal decrees or omens that follow a certain pattern. More literary and poetic texts, such as letters from priests or tracts, were more likely to have hallucinations, an AI term meaning that the machine generated a result completely unrelated to the text provided. The goal of the neural machine translation, NMT, into English from Akkadian is to be part of a human-machine collaboration by creating a pipeline that assists the scholar or student of the ancient language. Currently, the NMT model is available on an online notebook, and the source code has been made available on GitHub at academia. The researchers are currently developing an online application called the Babylonian Engine.
Well, that was very, very interesting. I'm fascinated by this. As I said, a combination of linguistics, cryptology, artificial intelligence. Fascinating stuff. Yes, the benefits of brute force. A procedure like that is not new. In language deciphering, undeciphered writing systems are, after all, unintended crypto systems. Originally developed to facilitate written communication, their knowledge is lost over centuries and millennia, making their characters the equivalent of digits or the ciphertext of a cipher. The idea of trying to decode an undeciphered script by cryptanalytic means therefore represents quite a reasonable approach. Now, Michael Ventris, for instance, used a brute force system of grids while trying to decipher linear B, which was derived by techniques he learned when he was presumably a cryptanalyst in the Royal Air Force, and which, thanks to his genial intuitions, interesting description, led to the decipherment of the script. Very interesting indeed. Now, Ventris systematically attributed apparently random phonetic values to the linear B symbols, which he knew were syllabograms, thanks to the previous impressive work on the writing system developed by Alice Kober, compelling a potentially endless system of grids. Then he applied to some symbols relatively arbitrary assumptions, like the correct values of the sounds of A for a specific phonogram and NI for specific syllabogram, and was able to find his lucky match, the cluster of characters transcribing the place name Amnisos, the port of Knossos, symbolically Aminiso. That's interesting. So that's Greek, sort of a Greek lettering, I guess, similar to Greek, modern Greek. It's interesting when I look at Cyrillic, like, the Cyrillic, I have no idea. Absolutely none. With at least with a sort of a Indo-European language, I can look at it and I can go, well, okay, symbol languages confuse me. Like, Chinese and Japanese writing, very difficult for me to get my head around. But anything such as, Spanish or French or German or, Dutch or something like that, I can look at a block of text and I can sort of go, well, okay, I can see where the structure comes from and the wording and all that sort of stuff. Because the letters are the same, basically. Tell you how much I know. Fascinating. Once he had those correct syllabic values, a rain effect was triggered, and by using the grids and attributing those values to the corresponding syllabograms and other clusters, he was able to start reading linear B. Word by word, the language hidden behind a script revealed itself to be an archaic variant of Greek, Mycenaean Greek indeed, spoken and transcribed way before the induction in Greece of the classical ancient Greek alphabet, derived from the Phoenician alphabet, in an extraordinary discovery which opened our eyes on the secrets of the ancient Mycenaean civilization and society. Yeah, so rain effect, I'm assuming, was, more like a snowball effect, do you think? When sort of a little snowball starts and becomes a big one. So the more, once you start getting solutions to these writings, more and more and more and more, until eventually you can read the whole text. Yeah, interesting. Now, Ventris did not think that linear B was transcribing ancient Greek until almost until the last moments of its decipherment. However, the prevalently unbiased procedure he applied helped him not to fall victim of any misconception. Now, based on that experience, our team's idea was to develop a completely aseptic method to deal with linear A. What we wanted to do indeed was to attack its symbols with all possible phonetic values from all possibly compatible, at the geographical and chronological level, languages from the Mediterranean and surrounding areas. A daunting task, quantitatively because the number of possible language and phonetic values involved, and intellectually because of the huge and all-embracing linguistic knowledge and expertise required. Okay. So yes, so looking at languages around it, seeing what common factors are, and then working from there. Right. That's interesting. Now, a computer had to help. We needed people with strong coding expertise and a lot of knowledge of ancient languages potentially connected with the elusive Minoan. We informally called our computer and the software developed to run on it the machine. Interesting. How linear A met the machine. Now, despite how specialized all this may look, the underlying idea was quite basic. Take linear A, all the documents, tablets, fragments, tables, seals, tokens, etc. A corpus with transcriptions is already available. Take that into account, but transcribe, again, everything document by document, symbol by symbol. Right, so, scan it in, go from there. A Unicode font is available, but you need something more accurate, which should include possible ligatures and graphical variants. Develop your own non-Unicode font on Linear A for precise transcriptions then. Now, transliterate all the linear A text you can through linear B phonetic values where linear A and linear B solidograms apparently coincide to allow for a rudimentary and potential reading of the linear A text itself. Compile spreadsheets with all the transcriptions through your linear A font and transliterations through your linear B readings. Okay. So that's eliminating some of the possibilities because you know linear B, so whatever matches with linear A, you can then tick it off the list. Now take lexicons of ancient languages and proto-languages which might be compared to Minoan, independently of a specific language family like Indo-European, Semitic or Afro-Asiatic, etc. Example, ancient Egyptian, Hamito-Semitic, Hittite, and Luwian, etc., and compile spreadsheets with the transcriptions of each single iemma in a fashion that can overlap with the linear A transcription. Do the same with more unlikely languages, proto-languages and language families, e.g. Albanian, Proto-Celtic, Uralic and Basque, etc., which will be used as calibration tests. Okay, cool. Then you write a computational program which can read and process the different spreadsheets, producing exact comparisons among them within seconds. The program can take a specific lexicon, e.g. ancient Egyptian, and run it against the entire linear A corpus, your transcriptions and transliterations, finding possible relevant matches, words, phonetic clusters. The program then compiles a new spreadsheet with all the possible matches resulting from the comparison transcribed by one by one, with the indications of the documents where they have been found, their positions, lines, segments in every specific document, their frequency in the corpus, their transcriptions with your non-unique Unicode linear A font, potential IPA, International Phonetic Alphabet transcriptions, and some statistical details. A semantic list derived from the lexicon's transcriptions is automatically added language by language. This is where geologists could come in, and archaeologists, where they could do dating of some of these tablets and say, well, okay, we think this is about this many thousands of years old. What was the language we have deciphered from that area that was around the same time? Be interesting. Very interesting indeed. So again, this is what I say about crossover of scientific disciplines. It's incredible. A procedure that, if performed by hand, would require years and painstaking double-checking. The machine, conversely, can complete a corpus comparison in some seconds. Once the results are available, the human moment starts, and the members of the research team who have to analyse the spreadsheets with the results to ascertain whether the matches are highlighted by the machine are reasonable and possible, or just a product of chance and irrelevant, and whether they can be linguistically significant. In practice, they can be actual, meaningful words in the context of a single tablet and of the corpus in its entirety. Absolutely fascinating. So you literally, no matter how good the machine is, you've got to double check its work. Now, through this procedure, the chances of highlighting actual lucky matches increase exponentially, and that could potentially lead to the decipherment of linear A based on the comparison with a possibly compatible deciphered language. As I was saying before, get some archaeologists to, well, okay, from this time, we know this language, we've dated the tablet from this time, these two times match up, they're both in the similar area. Let's just see what happens. Interesting. Now, the process is unbiased because no preconceived idea about the underlying language is allowed and considered. The chosen lexicons belong to all possibly compatible languages, as mentioned, even unlikely languages and proto-languages like Basque and Proto-Celtic are tested to improve the functionality of the machine and to allow for statistical comparisons. Absolutely fascinating. This is incredible. Obstacles in the approach. Now, issues and weaknesses nonetheless are always surfacing. The main problem is represented by the linear B approach. To read linear A through the possibly corresponding linear B phonetic values is shown over time to be an ineffective or at least highly flawed strategy. However, the linear B phonetic values are at the moment the only possible approximation for a tentative reading of linear A. In other words, without them, it's impossible to proceed. I wonder if that's a bias or an assumption. Is that really necessary to run linear A through linear B, if you know what I mean? Like, has anybody tried it? Love to hear from you down in the comments if you have. If the Mycenaeans had not only borrowed the Minoan writing system, but also used it to transcribe phonetic values, which was similar between Minoan and Mycenaean with the same syllabograms, this approach can be meaningful. If conversely the similarity between linear A and linear B due to borrowing is only graphical, then we have no reasonable way to read linear A in itself. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, definitely. Oh, God, a numb bum. Yeah, so that's incredible. So yes, it's there's got to be another way to read linear A without linear B. There has to be. Can't be impossible. I don't know enough about linguistics, but I'm wondering if it's, another approach could be used. Another problem is connected with the analysis performed by the researchers on the results produced by the machine. There is not a rule apart from common sense to decide which cluster, i.e. possible word, highlighted by the program, can be significant or possible lucky match. Even a high frequency in the linear A corpus could not imply the correctness of the interpretation and relevance of a lexical item in a specific language derived from a targeted comparison. Right, so in other words, a high frequency of an individual lexical item, in other words, an individual letter or sentence or, like sunrise is a word. We see that symbol 15 times, we think it means sunrise. Could also mean sunset. It could also be a season, not necessarily just a day, I guess. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Though, in that case, therefore, the arbitrariness, even though we try to avoid it at all costs, becomes a part of the interpretation process and quite possibly would help with your lucky streak, if you know what I mean. Moreover, if Minoan is really an isolated language, or if no linguistic connections exist between it and any of the tested languages, the comparisons cannot produce any meaningful and useful finding, especially if isolated. If you've got a society that's completely isolated from the outside world, they'll develop their own language, and not, it's obviously due to migration and everything else that languages develop over time because you're getting people's mixing, speaking different languages, etc., etc. I'm probably preaching to the converted here, but again, I'm just, speaking aloud. I'm thinking aloud. I think it's speaking aloud. Oh, God. I'm just thinking aloud here. Just fascinates me, all this. Independently of that, however, the systematic comparisons of our corpora generate plenty of potentially significant results, at least at the level of frequency analysis and pattern recognition, and provide us with a massive amount of data the traditional comparisons cannot quantitatively match. Yes, this is really interesting, this bit, using the machine moving forward. Now, the machine is an intuitive and user-friendly program which ultimately allows all kinds of macro comparisons at a crypt analytic analyses. The program works exactly as described above. The researchers feed it with the linear A transcriptions and a targeted lexicon, and in some seconds all the possible matches are highlighted in a separate document with transcriptions, transliterations, details on clusters, origins and positions, frequency analysis statistics. Then the researchers start to analyze the findings and to check and double check the results, tablet by document by document, whatever they appear. That would be interesting. Looking at this here, researchers feed it with linear transcriptions and the target lexicon. Now, the target lexicon, what sort of derivative of that particular language? Because what I mean is, you have American English and you have British English. Now, in Australia, we say we speak Australian English, but it's close to the British English. But even closer is New Zealand English, is closer to British English. Then you got different spellings for words. Even though Americans and Australians speak the same language, we spell things differently. So I'm wondering if that's taken into account when they say target lexicon. I wonder which derivative of a language they use. Fascinating, isn't it? Due to the large amount of data and the different fields of expertise involved, the work is still in progress. Now, quite recently, I moved from NTU to Jiaotong Liverpool University. That's an interesting mixture of words, isn't it? Yeah, ironically. In Suzhou or Jiangsu, China. Sorry to the entire country of China for mispronouncing those, no disrespect. But the project is still regularly ongoing, is based on solid foundations. Now, this is something that you can really sink your teeth into. And it sounds like to me the project's really only, a relatively recent thing, but the way AI is going, it's going to really help, I hope. The team completed the machine, which was made available open source to all the scholars interested in using it for all kinds of macro comparisons, not necessarily in the field of language deciphering. Our font was effectively developed, as well as the transcriptions and transliterations. Open source is brilliant. I should go and hunt it up myself, actually. That's incredible. Would love to see this thing in action. Yes, validation tests are implemented and the macro comparisons started. Now, while the process naturally needs constant commitment and continuous enhancements in every single procedure, it is now time to make the device and its tools run and work systematically. People waiting for news on Linear A, therefore, should stay tuned. It's possible some surprises will come soon. Absolutely amazing. Thank you, Dr. Francesco Parono Cacciafocio. That's absolutely amazing. Dr. Francesco, that's really cool. I think we should keep an eye on this story because this is completely fascinating. So you're combining computer science, archaeology, linguistics, my God, cryptology. Oh, amazing. Absolutely amazing. It's just, wow. As I said, I just get so absorbed in this stuff sometimes. If I wander off, particularly on a live stream, which I'll be doing tomorrow at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Time, feel free to give me a nudge and say, oi, where have you gone? Come back. I do tend to get carried away. God, I love this stuff. Absolutely stuns me. And have a look at this. This little symbol up here for Ancient Origins does look like the Stargate symbol, doesn't it? Yeah, it's just me to notice that. You nerd! Wow. Well, thanks for your patience if you made it this far. This is a bit of a longer video, but I really wanted to get this down because I think it's absolutely incredible. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. All right, well, my name is David. Thanks for joining me for another Studio 64 Science, Space and Tech News update. I shall see you in the next one. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. If you're up for it, drop a comment down below the video because I'd love to hear what you think. All right, take care, and as I always say, if you can't be good at it. As I also always say, please join us once again, live stream, Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, and we'll catch up and do some more science, space, and tech news live. It'll be fantastic. And as I also always say,
Take off!